Beijing and Paris to deepen cooperation. Government aid agencies prepare for risk of waterborne diseases in Mozambique. At least 134 Fulani herders killed in central Mali. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. 2019 Africa CEO Forum begins in Kigali. Germany stuns the Netherlands with last-minute winner. And now to the latest on President Xi Jinping's state visits. The Chinese leader is in France, the last stop of his three-nation tour in Europe. Xi Jinping met with the French President Emmanuel Macron in a resort village on the French Riviera on Sunday. This year, the two sides are marking 55 years of diplomatic relations, and Xi Jinping said the traditional friendship will continue.
A private dinner at a villa by the Mediterranean coast. A chance for a personal touch as the French and Chinese leaders begin their highly anticipated summit. Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan arrived late Sunday afternoon in Nice and were welcomed by French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian. French President Emmanuel Macron was waiting at the villa. Xi stressed that maintaining a sound bilateral relationship is vital to long-term development of both countries and to their potential impact on the world. He said China and France share consistent visions for the future, and both value the spirits of independence and self-reliance. Macron said the two sides are important strategic partners and should deepen cooperation in multiple fields. On Monday, they're expected to talk more about bilateral ties and China-EU ties. The two sides will sign a series of energy agreements, including cooperation in nuclear power and aerospace. The two leaders are also set to meet with EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Tuesday.
Ahead of President Xi's state visit to France, we took a closer gauge of the expectations in France for this trip. Let's take a listen.
We have many expectations because China is playing an important role around the world. France also has a tradition for paying attention to international issues such as diplomacy and economy. I think it's time to discuss and cooperate on many sectors like digital technology, scientific development, as well as world trade rules.
Two heads of state can bring their own visions to exchange opinions about governance. I believe that this visit will be a success. I personally hope that the two heads of state can further enhance personal friendship. This will benefit the two countries in the long term and cement a solid foundation for win-win partnership.
The Belt and Road Initiative has been around for 6 years now, and it's an outstanding initiative for the world. This is the first time in history that a country not only draws a blueprint for its own future, but also for the whole world. It will benefit many sectors such as infrastructure construction, modernization, and innovation. That will be the focus of Xi's visit.
The city of Wuhan in central China's Hubei province has a long history in cooperation with France. Medical research and academic exchange are among the many fields. CGTN's Sun Tianyuan visited Zhongnan Hospital of Wuhan University and shows us the dividends of this cooperation.
This is perhaps the only hospital with both Chinese and French signs in Wuhan. Aside from that, Zhongnan Hospital also has China's first emergency center with a French rescue mode. French-Chinese doctor Drought came in 2005 to take charge.
We use France as a reference to learn from its advanced and mature rescue modes, which is integrating emergency medical treatment before and after admission. We pull our best resources, pushing the ICU's measures to the forefront for the best results.
Zhao says Wuhan's China-France cooperation in the medical sector started as scholar exchanges. Then it gradually expanded into medical training after graduation.
We are honored to have support from both sides. Frequent exchanges between high levels have indeed pushed programs forward and made great progress, medical research exchange.
As the two nations push ties to new levels, Zhongnan Hospital is also eyeing the future by cultivating talent with an international vision. With the China-France Joint Education Program, the university has provided students and doctors more opportunities to see the world and make use of their knowledge. Yao Shiyi is one of the 24 students in the class of 2019. 3 years ago, she studied at University de Lorraine for 6 months.
First, I have to say that I love the language. This program gives me a chance to practice at top French hospitals and meet friends in the field, so that I can apply the techniques in my future clinical work.
And for the seniors, the memories are still fresh even years after graduation.
Many of my French colleagues have great interest in China's development. The program is a wonderful way to help both sides get to know each other better, whether in the field of medical science or culture.
Chinese students and doctors in the exchange program can further study or practice at sister hospitals in France and vice versa. Dr. Zhao hopes this momentum can extend further in both directions.
We hope at the next stage, more French doctors can come to Wuhan and attend resident training at Chinese hospitals.
Zhao says there will be more multi-center clinical studies on improving triage or the process of quickly examine patients' conditions for faster treatment. Sun Tianyuan, CGTN, Wuhan, Hubei Province.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has left Monaco after finishing his state visit. CGTN's Stefan de Vries has more on what the leaders of both countries achieved.
On Sunday, Prince Albert II, the head of state of the Principality of Monaco, held a grand welcome ceremony for President Xi Jinping at the Prince's Palace of the city-state. The exchange of visits between the Chinese president and Prince Albert II, who visited Beijing last September, demonstrates the high level of China-Monaco ties. The two heads of state held talks on strengthening China-Monaco relations. Xi said that the two countries have always treated each other as equals with sincerity and friendship. After bilateral talks on ecological and economical issues, Prince Albert II and President Xi Jinping attended a state luncheon with 40 guests in the Prince's Palace, here right behind me. And that ended the first state visit of a Chinese president to one of the world's smallest countries. On Sunday night, Xi traveled to Beaulieu-sur-Mer in France. Here he was received by President Emmanuel Macron and his spouse for a private dinner in the Villa Kyrillos. France is the last leg of Xi's three-nation European visit, which began in Italy. In Paris, he will also be meeting European leaders Jean-Claude Juncker and Angela Merkel before flying back to China on Tuesday. This is Stefan de Vries in Monaco for CGTN.
And now to the latest on the Thailand's vote. The country's pro-military Palang Pracharat Party says it aims to form a government as it leads in the election's preliminary results. Now, party spokesman Kopsak Putrakul told reporters they expect to gather over half of the seats in the House of Representatives. Late Sunday night, unofficial voting results showed the Phayuthai party in second place. It was the governing party ousted by the 2014 coup. The new Future Forward Party came in third. It had gained popularity amid young voters during its political campaigns. And to Kenya now, and there are reports of deaths resulting from the ongoing drought affecting parts of the country. The government says it is yet to receive any reports, and so far there is no official confirmation of drought-related deaths. CGTN's Robert Nagila is currently in Baringo County, one of the drought-stricken areas about 300 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi. He filed this report. Let's take a look.
A few meters from a dilapidated structure in Kamasuk village, Baringo County, a heap of stones covered with dry shrubs to prevent animals digging up the soil stares at us. It's a grave, barely a week old, of 61-year-old Stephen Lokidop.
He left that morning to go work on a neighbor's farm. At about 12:30, we were informed someone had died. We asked who and what had killed him. We rushed down from the hills and found he was dead.
A local elder says Stephen had sought some temporary work to feed his starving family.
His family had stayed for 4 days without food. He went to look for work to earn money to buy food, but died working.
As we chat, Stephen's 2 children slowly make their way back home. We are told they'd gone to a neighboring home to look for food. Neighbors tell us this is not the first hunger-related death in the area. In the past 1 month, a woman who lived not too far from here died of hunger-related complications. The government disputes reports of people dying from hunger. But the levels of poverty in areas ravaged by the ongoing drought and local traditions mean affected families bury their dead almost immediately to avoid any costs.
Local authorities sent a vehicle and wanted to take the body to the police for an autopsy to find the cause of death. But he was not poisoned. He died of hunger. And if they took him, how would we bring the body back?
Kenya's National Drought Management Authority says a lack of rainfall this year has increased the food insecure population to more than 1 million people. About a dozen counties are severely affected. The national and local governments are distributing food and supporting water tracking. But Kamusuk village is still awaiting delivery. For Stephen's wife, there's literally no time to mourn her husband. With no job and no source of income, her immediate priority is putting food on the table for her children. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Kamusuk, Kenya.
You are watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have lots more news coming your way after the break. Here's a look at what's ahead. Government aid agencies prepare for risk of waterborne diseases in Mozambique. At least 134 Fulani herders killed in central Mali.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Details of the country.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
In the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed.
And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
From Nairobi's center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. 11 days after Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique, people living in some remote village areas are yet to receive assistance. Aid is slowly trickling into areas affected by the storm. Locals are now mobilizing aid to try and help those displaced.
In this rural community, about 30 kilometers inland from Beira City, residents sigh with relief at seeing a truck laden with supplies. A local petrol company is here to deliver food supplies. Food and water had yet to reach this village. roads only became accessible in the last few days.
We're giving much value to the aid that we're getting here. We're very grateful because it will satisfy our needs, as most of the people here were crying.
The villagers are mostly subsistence farmers. They have lost pretty much everything and have been eating whatever plants they could find growing in the wild.
We have nothing. We've lost our corn crops and we don't have milk as well. We don't have anything.
We are struggling for food. We don't have anything. The land does not give us anything. As you can see, the manioc is already rotting. The corn is not drying. It's already ruined. This is all famine here.
While the villagers are certain that the aid will allow them to eat and feed their children, it can only last for just a few days. Chamwono, CGTN.
Relief efforts are also running late for over 900,000 Malawians affected by the deadly tropical cyclone Idai. Bangula Admak camp in Nsanje district is struggling to accommodate over 5,000 people displaced by the floods. The displaced population remains in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Malawi's Department of Disaster and Relief says the displaced need urgent provision of shelter, blankets, antibiotics, insecticides, treated bed nets, and rehydration solution. UNICEF has made an urgent appeal for $8 million in funding to meet the immediate and medium-term needs of women and children affected by the floods south of the country.
Most of the affected, the displaced, are currently living in classrooms. So with the donation of these 140 tents, they will enable us to provide shelter to the displaced. We will shift the displaced from classrooms and accommodate them in these tents. So it's a plus to us because there was that gap of shelter in terms for the displaced.
All right, Daniel Arap Moy joins us in studio for an update. Daniel Arap Moy, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Daniel, please talk to us about your experience and what you saw in Malawi.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Well, Malawi was one of the areas that really affected so many people. What I saw is a desperate group of people, you know, in need of food assistance, in need of clean water supply, in need of blankets, you know, almost virtually everything. These people were greatly affected by the floods. And I must also say that the response is not really what they expected. You know, so the struggles continues up to now as we speak. These people need urgent help and attention from government officials, from well-wishers, anybody who is able to send in some relief supply to these people.
Well, speaking of response, how would you judge the local and international emergency aid agencies and how they responded in the aftermath of the floods?
Well, Richard, I must say that international and local response have been slow in coming. The government of Malawi tried to respond, but in terms of infrastructure, rehabilitation and restoration of roads and bridges that were destroyed. In terms of international response, we've seen a few NGOs on ground that are trying to respond to the plight of these people. But unfortunately, they are very few in number. I could mention UNICEF itself is on the ground. We have Doctors Without Borders. And also there is Australian Church Aid that is trying to respond to this crisis. But these are just a few in number. Compared to the number of people on the ground, these NGOs on the ground cannot actually respond adequately to the needs of these people.
And could you talk to us, can you zone in on some of the key problems that you think happened in that area and what the Malawians' expectations were? Can you zone in on that for us?
Yes, Malawians are expecting too much from the government. First of all, the government of Malawi of President Peter Mutharika is right now under campaigns. They've started early campaigns. And a few days ago, he met one of the people, a group of people down south in Nsanje, and he promised the people that nobody is going to die of starvation, nobody is going to lack clean water. But these are political words that are spoken by leaders. But of course, he tried so much as his government to donate in some few relief items, and he promised the people that water will be restored and infrastructure will as well be restored. But we're not aware or sure of when exactly this will be. So the people are expecting the government, humanitarian agencies to respond to the water crisis that is affecting the people now. They expect the government to respond to the issue of food, lack of food. Okay. They expect the children to be clothed. They expect the education sector to come in as soon as possible, to restore schools that were blown up by rushing winds and water, to restore boreholes that were washed away by the waters. So the situation is actually grave. The expectations are simply too much because the people lost virtually everything. So you can imagine the people that have no shelter, no clean water, no food to feed on. Virtually everything is needed to help these people that are affected by these floodwaters.
All right, Daniel Arabmoy, before I let you go, one more question, and I'm very sorry to put you on the spot, but do you think the government could have done a better job, in your opinion?
Yes, I think the government could have done a better job. And, but also, needless to say, is that, yes, the government is trying its level best, but the biggest challenge is that the logistical support is not readily available. You know, the roads are inaccessible. The government is trying to reach the people, but the choppers also cannot carry the relief items that people require. The aid agencies are trying to use local canoe boats, which carries just barely 2 bags of posho to reach these people. So, yes, they're trying their level best, and we hope in the next few days people will receive the much-needed relief supply. All right, Daniel Arabmoy, thank you for your insights. Thank you for analysis. We certainly appreciate it all. Thank you, Daniel. Moving on, as the water recedes after the cyclone and flooding, the risk of waterborne diseases spreading increases exponentially. With over 417 deaths now confirmed, the number are likely to increase. Angelo Coppola reports from Beira City in Mozambique.
The 2 diseases most concerning authorities and aid agencies are malaria and cholera.
We'll have cholera, we'll have malaria. It's unavoidable in this situation. So the government is opening a cholera treatment center already, and we have teams on the ground to make sure that they monitor.
Monitoring is essential and the first step in containing the spread of waterborne diseases.
We have had no, as far as I'm concerned, confirmed cases of cholera to date, and that's really important to understand. I agree with the Minister that there will be cases of waterborne disease, and if we're on top of that, we've got the treatment centres set up, we will be able to manage that. It's where we lose disease surveillance through lack of access, it's going to be really problematic.
Aid agencies are prepared for most eventualities and take a 2-pronged approach when tackling diseases.
In this kind of situations, we normally, first of all, we try to find the places where it's more dangerous, and we try to fix and to try to do our operation over there. And we have different tools for doing that, especially for water supply or sanitation systems to prevent all the waterborne diseases. And another thing is also to inform the people through our national society how they can control and how they can do the proper hygiene promotion. That's the thing we can do, and it's quite good to restore a good situation here.
The danger of the spread of waterborne diseases is now a very real threat, and it's important that it's monitored firstly and dealt with secondly, and very quickly. Otherwise we could have an epidemic on our hands. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Beira, Mozambique.
Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has sacked and replaced 2 generals after gunmen killed 134 Fulani herders in a surge of violence in the country. Traditional Donzo hunters have been accused of carrying out the attack in Osago. The incident took place as a United Nations Security Council delegation visited the Sahel region to assess security in the area. Malians have often fallen victim both to jihadists and onslaughts and ethnic reprisals. The bloodshed took place less than a week after an army post was raided, leaving about 23 people dead in the country's central region. Meanwhile, in Morocco, striking teachers have taken to the streets in fresh protest. They are demanding an end to renewable contracts and better terms of service.
About 10,000 teachers staged a new protest in the Moroccan capital, Rabat,
to demand permanent jobs. They marched from the Education Ministry to the square in front of Parliament.
This Ministry of Education does not respect democratic contracts or binding laws. It does not respect teachers as people or as citizens. For example, it says that if the teacher becomes ill, then his or her contract is immediately terminated, without notice and without compensation. What humanity and what dignity are they talking about?
The teachers want an end to renewable contracts in favor of permanent jobs that offer civil service benefits. This includes a better retirement pension.
Our request is a very simple one. We want to be part of the civil service because it's a constitutional right for every Moroccan. We also want for the abolition of the contracting procedure because it tries to break all the links with the public service and abolish public schools.
The protest was organized by an alliance of leftist opposition parties, main unions, civil society organizations, and university students. The teachers have been striking for 3 weeks in a row.
It was a bloody night, as if we were in a war against the oppressing forces that hurt the teachers and humiliated them in the streets of Rabat. We are Pacific people, not separatists or people who have a political agenda or anything like that. Our unique objective is a simple social request that could easily be found.
Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
Let's take a look at some of the top stories making headlines across Africa. The Chinese leader, President Xi Jinping, is in France, the last stop of his three-nation tour in Europe. Xi Jinping met with the French President Emmanuel Macron in a resort village on the French Riviera on Sunday. This year, the two sides are marking 55 years of diplomatic relations, and Xi Jinping said the traditional friendship will continue. 11 days after Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique, people living in some remote village areas are yet to receive assistance. Aid is slowly trickling into areas affected by the storm. Locals are now mobilizing aid to try and help those displaced. Relief efforts are running late for over 900,000 Malawians affected by the deadly tropical cyclone Idai. Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has sacked and replaced 2 generals after gunmen killed 134 Fulani herders in a surge of violence in the country. Traditional Donzo hunters have been accused of carrying out the attack in Ogosagu. The incident took place as a United Nations Security Council delegation visited the Sahel region to assess security in the area. And Thailand's pro-military Palang Pracharat party says it aims to form a government as it leads in the election's preliminary results. Party spokesman Kopsak Putrakul told reporters they expect to gather over half of the seats in the House of Representatives. Late Sunday night, unofficial voting results showed the Payu Thai party in second place. It was the governing party ousted by the 2014 coup. The new Future Forward Party came in third. It had gained popularity amid young voters during its political campaigns. And that is a wrap of your top stories across Africa. All right, you're watching Africa Live. Time now for your business headlines. Let's take a look at what's ahead. 2019 Africa CEO Forum begins in Kigali.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk business. The Africa CEO Forum is underway at the Kigali Convention Center in Rwanda. About 1,500 delegates drawn from around the African continent and beyond are attending the annual meeting. The summit is one of the largest high-profile gatherings of business executives and investors on the continent. CGTN's Ramayang is at the 2019 edition of the Africa CEO Forum. Here's what to expect in the next 48 hours.
Now, there's a sense of deja vu with this edition of the Africa CEO Forum, because nearly a year ago in this very city, in fact in the hall directly behind me, 44 countries put pen to paper on an ambitious trade deal that would create the world's biggest single trade area, at least by member states. So the Africa CEO Forum for 2019 starts. A trade deal just needs one more country to ratify it before it can then come into force. And then, as President Kagame put it, the hard work begins. The question at this point is, who will that 22nd country be? And more importantly, when will they ratify that specific deal? Now, it is, of course, worth pointing out that as we speak, in late March, Nigeria, home to Africa's biggest economy and its biggest single nation population, has been very wary of signing the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Conference organizers here, however, also point out they're aiming to have at least $1 billion worth of deals, investment deals, signed at this one event, and that covers a whole broad spectrum of things, everything from startups looking for ticket sizes in the $1 million to $20 million range to countries like Morocco and Rwanda who will be pitching different investment projects to prospective investors at this very event. Now, there are many ideas that are also being covered in discussions at the Africa CEO Forum this year, covering everything from the future of banking to how do we close digital inequality in the public and the private spheres as well. And as more governments are lacking the fiscal space in order to drive future growth, the heavy lifting will increasingly have to be done by the private sector, which leads us back to the original question: is a CFTA perhaps the best way to do that? Ramanyang, CGTN, Kigali.
Egypt has embarked on a new strategy to double its exports in the next 5 years. The move is aimed at boosting Egypt's foreign exchange earning as well as improve its trade balance. It's part of incentives being lined up by the North African state to rebuild its shattered economy.
The government has outlined certain steps to go ahead with the export strategy. The main pillars are based on developing the manufacturing sector.
After the 2011 uprising, there was a sharp drop in industry and production as a result of the demonstrations and violence. This kept investors away from the country. Lately, we've seen the political leadership putting emphasis on improving the investment climate.
The government has established a subsidy mechanism. This system allows producers to receive a payback on taxes and costs if they export their products. It's part of a host of incentives being lined up by the government.
In addition to the newly ratified investment law, commended by foreign investors, banks are now funding SMEs at low interest rates. The state is distributing industrial land, which was something impossible to find before, as well as a plan to help reopen factories that closed down after the uprising.
To increase exports, you need a healthy industry, but there are some challenges ahead.
Some sectors are facing difficulties, such as the steel industry which we work in. The cost of production has increased drastically because of the rise in interest rates at the banks and the increase of energy prices. This way, we cannot compete in the international market or export. There must be strict quality control on all goods that are exported to maintain a strong reputation for the Egyptian products abroad.
The government strategy is also identifying the markets to penetrate and what products each market needs. The main priority is to target African countries.
We have a wide variety of exports to supply the continent, from textiles, clothes, furniture, and agricultural products.
Through this comprehensive strategy, the government is targeting exports to increase from the current $26 billion to $55 billion in the next 5 years. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Egypt is looking to invest more in African markets. Business delegations from China, Arab and African countries have been meeting in Cairo to find ways of expanding investment opportunities. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more on this.
Africa has the fastest growing economies in the world and a market of 1.2 billion consumers. The potential is huge for trade and investments in the continent.
Africa has a bright future, and that's why the whole world has set its sight on Africa. With the increase of population and development process, there is room for growth. In my sector in particular, the telecom and high-tech sectors, I'm here to push for partnership with Egypt and China to invest in Africa.
According to figures in 2017-2018, the non-African Middle East countries have only invested $15 billion in Africa. 11 billion of it are from the United Arab Emirates alone, mainly in hotels, airlines and supermarket chains. Arab businessmen have shown strong willingness to increase their investments in the African continent in the coming years, and Egypt could be the springboard for such cooperation. The largest Arab African investor in the continent is Egypt, with $10.2 billion. And the largest investor worldwide is China. And both are leading Arab investors in pumping more funds in sub-Saharan Africa.
We have an ambitious plan to penetrate and invest in more African markets. This includes programs for the transfer of experience in assembly plants and increasing local African components in most manufactured products. We will also work on transforming raw materials into finished goods locally. And we are studying partnership agreements in these domains.
Several businessmen from the African continent have been meeting with their Chinese and Arab counterparts to earmark the sectors that could benefit from foreign direct investments.
The investment that is required is to do with infrastructure, because that is where we have a lot of deficit. The sectors will be like transportation and logistics, because we must be able to connect all our trades together, and also with finance, making finance available for small and medium enterprises in Africa will greatly enhance trade.
Besides political instability in several African states, there are other challenges facing businessmen who have the desire to invest in the continent.
African countries, must have to make sure now that the ease of doing business is greatly enhanced, and also for the protection of investments in their countries, So these are areas which are very important, for African countries to make sure that they have the legal environment, the legal framework, so that it will give confidence, to foreign investors.
The United Arab Emirates is planning to host the next set of talks between the business delegations. Final contracts for investments in Africa are expected to be signed in the upcoming meetings. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Ahead of the China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo set for June this year, a Chinese delegation from Hunan province led by Governor Xu Zha visited a local Kenyan company in a bid to engage and familiarize itself in African brand products. Xu Zha later visited the African headquarters of China Global Television Network, based in the capital, Nairobi. His visit seeks to enhance economic and industrial cooperation and transformation between China and Kenya. The Sino-African Trade Expo will be held in China's city of Changsha. It's projected to promote investment, trade, and future economic cooperation between China and Africa. UK Prime Minister Theresa May reportedly said she will resign on one condition, that is Brexit. Supporting lawmakers in her party back her divorce deal. This report came after May met with her rebel MPs on Sunday. Two ministers have denied reports they were being considered to act as a possible caretaker prime minister. May's spokesman said the meeting covered issues including whether there was enough support in the House of Commons to bring back a meaningful vote for her deal this week. It has also been reported that her leadership is under threat, as some in her cabinet are plotting to oust her, a claim which key ministers have denied as well. All right, time now for a short break, but when we return. South Africa's Constitutional Hill celebrated as symbol of freedom fight.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Constitutional Hill is a symbol of South Africa's hard-fought freedom. Once the site of imprisonment of freedom fighters is now houses the Constitutional Court, which upholds the rights of all South Africans. The Human Rights Day Festival highlights the work of social justice organizations in the country and commemorates the lives lost during the Sharpeville massacre in 1960. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
The Human Rights Festival held at Constitution Hill commemorates one of South Africa's most painful days, the 21st of March 1960, when 69 people were killed by state police.
It was the day that Robert Sobukwe led a peaceful protest by PAC leaders to disregard the passes that the apartheid government had imposed on them and encourage them to leave their passes at home and peacefully go to the police stations and surrender themselves to be arrested. Police opened fire on the masses in Sharpeville, and these people all shot in their back as they turned around to run away, and they were peaceful.
It was also a turning point which led to the armed struggle and 3 decades of often deadly protests against the apartheid regime. Many freedom fighters were jailed at this very site.
Gandhi was locked up here, Mandela was locked up here, thousands of our leaders were locked up here, men and women. And that very site of imprisonment, of racism, brutal authoritarian rule is the place where we built our new constitutional court that upholds the new values.
This year's Human Rights Festival coincides with South Africa celebrating 25 years of democracy, as well as the 70th year of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The festival is a democratic space to reflect and promote social justice.
I'm celebrating the fact that I can be myself and I am free to be in my humanity. You know, I'm equal as everyone else in the world. I can do anything that anyone in the world can do without being restricted.
It's freedom of saying things that I want to then say, and freedom of making choices. Like in education, I can study anything that I want. My children are now able. One is able to then study and is a junior architecture, and then the other one is just doing accounting, commerce, things that were not for us.
But many feel the fight is not over yet.
Women for the longest time have been fighting to be heard. Sadly, 25 years into democracy, our voice is not even heard anymore. I mean, we are the world's capital with femicide, and 41% of our rape cases are children.
The second Human Rights Festival had something for everyone, but the event is really a call for all to take a stand and promote human rights in all areas of society, and to never forget South Africa's painful past. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
In London, an exhibition is exploring magic and mysticism in African cultures. Curated by fashion designer Grace Barnard-Jones, the exhibition invites viewers to experience multi-sensory installations and series of events.
At London's Serpentine Sackler Gallery, an exhibition explored the themes of African mysticism and ritual. It featured music, fashion, art, and design by artists who are either African or of African descent. Titled A Time for New Dreams, the show draws its name from a 2011 collection of essays by the Nigerian poet Ben Okri.
This is desperately a time for new dreams, because the old dreams, we see the results of the old dreams. We see where it's leading. We see where it has led. It's a dead-end road. A dead-end road of hatred and division, a dead-end road of the normalization of the dehumanization of people.
I think I was looking at ways that different black artists and intellectuals have addressed ideas of magic and ritual and mysticism, and how that can be communicated through aesthetics and the kind of sacred threads or the continuity of that conversation, how that can be formed in very different mediums.
Grace Wells Bonner is the creative force behind this eclectic collection of works. A Central St. Martin's graduate, her fashion label is stocked at high-profile stores including Selfridges and Dover Street Market. Bonner sees fashion as a way to understand her own identity and cultural heritage. Her Serpentine show is part of an ongoing series of short projects that unite Africa and its diaspora.
The themes of the continuance of culture throughout the diaspora, the things that unite us, the things that bring us together in terms of ritual practice, in terms of shrines, in terms of a kind of consciousness, a kind of raised consciousness. Grace, in this exhibition, is actually trying to retriangulate the diaspora, to unify all these, what appears to be different elements, but actually have got great unity. And that's one of the many things that people love about this exhibition. Not only the sense of ritual, the sense of shrines.
Bonner wants to turn the show into a traveling exhibition. She hopes it can reach places that she has a past connection to, like South Africa or Ghana. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
All right, time now for another short break, but we've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a look at the headline.